Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's story takes us on an unexpected journey through the trials of a wedding gone wildly off course. Join us as we explore what happens when a simple invitation becomes an all-consuming adventure. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. After spending money and a week of my time on a friend's wedding, she confronts me about gift. My husband was asked to be the best man at his longtime best friend's wedding. We didn't get along super great with his fiance, but they were a package deal, and of course we wanted to show support. My husband and I live in a major city, and his friend lives in a small town a few hours away, so when it came time for wedding clothes shopping, they came into the city and stayed with us. The friend, his fiance, her BFF, and her mom. The fiance invited me to go with them to pick out wedding dress, bridesmaids' dresses, as I was the only one not in the bridal party. I thought just to be inclusive. I went along, and after everything was picked out, the fiance put her nose about an inch away from my nose and said, "Will you be one of my bridesmaids?" I was caught really off guard and felt like I had no choice but to say yes. This girl's the kind of person who gets her feelings hurt anytime she hears no, like even if she invites you to something with no notice and you already had plans. If you say no, it's going to be weeks of drama and pouting. So I stammered something about how flattered I was, and suddenly I was stuffed into a mermaid green monstrosity of a bridesmaid dress. When it came time to pay for the dresses, I was told that we were expected to buy our own dress. The dress she'd picked for us to wear was about $125. This was an unexpected expense, but I kind of sighed and pulled out my card. Then when they were buying the wedding dress and mother-in-law's dress, their card didn't work. Tried 3 times, declined, so I had to pay, and they said they'd hit me back later. Another $450. The best man clothes were also a fiasco. The groom decided on formal tuxedos with tails and top hats. The rental on that ended up being $200 plus $50 for a top hat, which I guess we had to buy and couldn't rent. That's cool. Totally lots more occasions that would call for a top hat, right? So that was that until the week of the wedding. We bypassed a lot of the wedding showers and engagement parties as we were not living in the same area and couldn't drive down every other week. We did come down the week before for me to attend the bachelorette party and my husband to host the bachelor party, and we stayed till the wedding. I spent about $200 on bachelorette party gifts as another bridesmaid asked me to pick something up for her too, and she wanted me to buy these glass sex toys that were decidedly not cheap. Obviously, she didn't pay me back, and I was getting used to that. The groom's a gamer nerd, so they had a LAN party for the bachelor party. The only expense we ended up fronting for that was alcohol, which ended up being about $300. It became increasingly obvious through the week that no planning had gone into the wedding itself. The city park had been reserved, but no chairs or decorations had been arranged for, and the food and cake were all going to be DIY. It took an army of everyone involved, aside from the bride and groom, of course, to make all the finger sandwiches, baby quiches, mini cheesecakes, and other nibbles required. It was the height of summer in the South, and hauling 100 folding chairs and stringing twinkle lights and flowers in above 100-degree weather was indescribably frustrating. Nobody in their right mind would plan an outdoor wedding in July in our area and also select ultra-formal clothing. No. The bride was 2 hours late to her own wedding. She had her friend come and do all of our hair, and she expected to be paid $50 each at the end. Money's just hemorrhaging out of me at this point, and I'm in such a state of exhaustion and shock that I no longer care. The wedding happens, everyone seems happy. My husband and I were preparing to drag ourselves home to recuperate physically and financially. Then the bride stops me. She grabs my arm. Oh, I think this is where she thanks us for helping to make her big nightmarish day a success. No such luck. She's crying and shaking with anger, and she says, "I guess you didn't get me a wedding present. Just so you know, when someone invites you to a wedding, you're supposed to get them a present." I froze, and I could not close my mouth. I'm sorry, what? She got dragged off to take such and such picture, and I was still standing there, failing to compute what had just happened to me. We just left. Couldn't really say bye or anything. I was just so done. The car ride home was so much repeating what had happened to each other and just being at a loss. We needed a lot of time to just process how much of a ride we'd been taken on with no thank you, no apologies. Actually, they were completely ungrateful and thought we'd scammed them out of a wedding present. I feel like I need to add that we are not rich. We are young working people who basically emptied their bank accounts to help someone else's wedding not be a complete dumpster fire due to lack of planning. Sounds like an expensive way to learn that those two need to be completely removed from your lives. Doesn't matter how good friends your husband and the groom were before, this will be the new dynamic now, so get out while the getting's good. And our second story. In World War II, my Uncle Haj was an engineer with the RAF. He rapidly climbed the ranks and ended up being the head engineer at a local base. After the war, he met his wife of 45 years, Eve. It was the typical post-war relationship, without children though, due to complications. He quickly found a job at our village coal mine, known locally as the Pit. He went from engineer to foreman very quickly. The man had a knack for leadership, that's for sure. He and Eve, some of his RAF buddies, and his sister, my grandmother, often went to Spain for holidays, at least once a year before they all retired. After that, they went whenever they felt like it. The family. The unfortunate truth is that family isn't always nice. My grandmother was his only surviving direct family. Eve, on the other hand, had a large family. Very large. The trouble with large families is that often there's a few bad eggs. In this case, it was quicker to count the good ones. As Haj would put it, the trouble with eggs is you can only tell the good ones by spinning them quick or dunking them in water. I don't fancy going to prison. More often than not, Eve's family would drop by and ask to borrow money, not from Eve, she had none. Haj had always been industrious, saving as much as he could, and only really spending what he had to, other than the holidays, of course. The incident. When I hit 18, legal drinking age in the UK, he took me for my first beer, as my dad worked nights and had to sleep. He didn't drink, which was uncommon for him, as he was a regular at the working men's club we were in. Me. Haj, how come you're not drinking? I can't in good conscience drink your money without you getting a sniff. Haj. Well, I suppose one can't hurt. Don't tell Nip, his name for my grandmother, Sheila, but I've just been diagnosed with diabetes type 2. I don't want to take my chances. Me. I'll keep your secret, but you need to tell her, just on the off chance. Haj. I'll tell her in good time, kiddo. Now get it down you before it goes flat. Neither of us took much notice to the people around us, so we didn't notice Eve's nephew in the corner. 5 years pass. I've seen him a few more times, less than I'd like because of work and him going overseas. The build-up. I visited my grandparents one day to find my grandmother sobbing, with Haj sitting on the sofa. Haj, put the kettle on, kid. I need to tell you something. I make a coffee for Gran and Granddad, hot chocolate for me, and green tea for Haj. Haj. Now listen up. I've not got long on this wretched planet, but you're not going to cry over me. I've been diagnosed with late-stage cancer and couldn't be effing happier to be leaving. To Gran. Sorry, Nip. I know you don't want to hear this, but it has to be said. You and yours will be looked after, of course, but you're not to tell Eve and her family. To everyone. I've made up a new will. I want everyone to go to the reading. I've prepared a little gift for the family. Shortly after this chat, we found out he passed away. The revenge. We went to the reading as a family like he'd asked. It's the only thing he ever asked of us. We'd seen people we'd never met, never even heard of, so of course there were some sullen scowls across the table. Lawyer. Now that we're all here, please watch this video. Haj has a message for you all. Haj from beyond. Now then, I imagine this will be a shock to most of you, but I had cancer. If you're watching this, I want you to know that some of you made my last few years pleasant. Others, well, we'll get to you. To my side of the family. Not one of you came to me asking if I was all right or wanted anything doing. Instead, you asked if I wanted a hand with anything. For this, I thank you. I've never had anyone do anything for me unless they were my underlings in the RAF, and I didn't aim to start when I found out I was on my way out. You knew me better than most of my close family. I'll tell you if something's wrong. Good on you. Now then, let's get to the good bit. To Eve's family. You lot, where do I begin? When I took our Nip's grandson out for his first pint, apparently the walls have ears, and one of you overheard me tell him I had diabetes. Shame you had to say, it's a shame it wasn't cancer. Guess you got your wish, huh? The rest of you, whenever you visited me, you asked more often than not if you could borrow money. It's fine. I didn't mind lending it to you, but I did expect to get it back. So here's how this is going to work. I've split my money and put it in trust with my oldest friend, the lawyer. Nobody's getting a thing till Eve pops her clog, so don't bother asking. Eve can stay in the house I worked my butt off for until she either dies or has to go into care for any reason. The house is not to be sold until after she dies. Lazy as she is, she's still my wife. Once she dies, the house is to be sold at a reasonable price to the next owners, and the money from that is to be added to the total for my finances and split with the family. Eve's is her own. She can do with it what she wants, other than add it to my total. Lawyers left instructions on this. Now here's how it'll be split. If you've borrowed money from me and paid it back, you'll get a fair share based on your age at the time of my death. If you haven't repaid the money you borrowed, you'll still get a cut, minus what you owe me. For some of you, I hope you know I'm laughing at your squirming from beyond the grave. Deserves you right. Nip, my only living family, you'll get the lion's share of whatever's there to be done with what you will. If you're not wanting to keep it, lawyer's been paid for any services you may require. Trust him, he's a good lad and saved my butt on more than one occasion in the war. Nip's sons will get a decent chunk to help with whatever you need, and your children will be provided for as well. To my mom, not once have I heard anything bad about you. You're getting a cut too. Like it or lump it. OP, you've been a great help the last couple of weeks. I called you unfairly at 3 a.m. to help me out of the bath after finally giving up getting myself out. Sorry you had to see that. You didn't have to help the next day with the decorating either. If you weren't already on your career path, you'd make a fine tradesman. You'll receive a cut to be determined by the near future's events. Use it how you will. To the rest of you, I am utterly effing disgusted to have known you. I mentioned earlier that Eve can live in the house till she dies or is put into residential care. If either of these happens, nobody is to live in the house. I don't want anyone I don't trust in there. Now quit your crying and go on about your lives. Haj. As you can imagine, people kicked up a stink about this. We nodded to the lawyer and left. Shortly after the funeral, Eve went into a retirement home with her own money. Haj's was locked up as per his request. She had more than enough to keep her afloat for many more years. A couple months down the line, we all got called back to the lawyer's office, a little bemused. Again, we're directed to watch a video. Haj. I'm not surprised that this video has been played. Some of you just don't follow orders. If you're watching this, it means that someone I don't trust was found living in my house. I don't give a F who it is. Lawyer has instructions of what to do next. But for the sake of his voice and sanity, whoever was found in the house against my wishes is now stricken from the will entirely. If the others feel they want to share their money with you, that's their loss. You'll not get a penny from me. As it turns out, my cousin, who bullied me in school, and her family, as in her on and off boyfriend, 2 kids and a dog, had moved into the house after convincing Eve to move out because they needed the house. What they hadn't counted on is nosy neighbors. Haj asked them to watch the house, and if they saw anyone new in there or any signs of moving, to report to the lawyer for updates. In return, they'd get a cut of the money he had. They're good people. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.